it's always difficult when if you in the circumstances you're not able to arrive with time, kind of like with a couple of days to get used to it. Let's say like if you go to the US and you had a tournament in this area of the world and you went far, there's always sometimes there have been experiences like that, but at the end it comes with the job and it's not something you can really control. So yeah, the reality is that you just have.
Alex Eala is facing brutal backlash after a shocking performance. Supporters demanded the closure of Rafael Nadal's tennis academy. The criticism exploded online after Ali labored against a lower-ranked opponent, sparking a conflagration that exposed tennis's ugly reality about development, duress, and the cost of immediate achievement. What Nadal revealed about her journey transformed everything we thought we knew. Alex Eala was intended to be untouchable. The Filipino tennis prodigy who trained at the legendary Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. The first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles title at the US Open Juniors. The girl who broke into the WTA Top 200 before her 20th birthday. She carried the aspirations of an entire nation on her shoulders. And for a while, it appeared like she could handle it all. But tennis has a cruel way of humbling even the brightest lights. In early 2025, Eala confronted Victoria Tomova, ranked world number 109 in what should have been a routine encounter. The Filipino community tuned in with optimism, expecting their golden girl to dominate. Instead, they witnessed her struggle through unforced errors, double faults, and a mental collapse that left supporters stunned. The contest ended in a devastating defeat, and the internet exploded. Within hours, Filipino tennis forums were flooded with fury. Social platforms became a battlefield. Supporters who once praised her every move now questioned everything about her profession. Her serve was criticized as weak, her backhand labeled inconsistent, her mental toughness called into question. But the most brutal comment of all stemmed from a viral tweet that demanded the Rafa Nadal Academy be shut down for failing to cultivate her properly. This wasn't just censure. This was a public execution. I had experienced setbacks before, but this felt different. The defeat to Tomova wasn't just about tennis anymore. It became a symbol of unfulfilled promises, wasted potential, and the impossible expectations imposed on young competitors. Filipino advocates had invested emotionally in her journey, and now they felt betrayed. They wanted answers. They wanted accountability. And they wanted someone to blame. The backlash grew so severe that even neutral tennis enthusiasts began to notice. International outlets took up the narrative, framing it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hype. Eala's name trended on Twitter for all the wrong motivations. The girl who once inspired millions was now the subject of hate threads and conspiracy theories. Some supporters alleged she was overrated from the start. Others suggested her academy training had ruined her natural talent. A few even spread false allegations about her receiving billion-dollar contracts she didn't deserve. But here's what nobody was conversing about. Alex Eala was still only 20 years old. She was still learning, still growing, still fighting to discover her place in a brutal sport that chews up new competitors and spits them out without remorse. The WTA circuit is unforgiving. One terrible contest. The Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca is one of the most prestigious tennis facilities in the globe. Competitors from across the globe paid high dollar to train there, hoping to absorb even a fraction of Nadal's legendary work ethic and mental fortitude. Alex Eala was one of the lucky few who received a scholarship to train at the facility when she was just 14 years old. It was a dream opportunity, a chance to learn from the best, a pathway to greatness. But after her setback to Tomova, supporters began to query whether the institution had actually helped her at all. The criticism started with her serve. Supporters pointed out that despite years of preparation at one of the world's best facilities, Eala's serve remained her weakest weapon. In the encounter against Tomova, she registered multiple double faults at critical moments. Her first serve percentage hovered around 60%, far below the standard for elite competitors. Tennis analysts dissected her technique frame by frame, noting that her toss was inconsistent and her ball placement predictable. One ubiquitous Twitter thread claimed that the Rafa Nadal Academy focuses too significantly on clay court grinding and topspin heavy baseline play, neglecting the aggressive flat hitting style that Eala required to develop. The thread argued that the institution's coaching philosophy was built around producing micro-Nadals, competitors who could overcome opponents through relentless consistency rather than overpowering them with weapons. For an athlete like Eala, who naturally thrived on quick points and aggressive returns, this approach may have stunted her development. The backlash intensified when Filipino tennis commentators joined the conversation. Some argued that Eala should have stayed in the Philippines and trained locally where coaches could have tailored her development to her unique assets. Others pointed to examples of competitors who survived outside traditional academy systems, suggesting that big-name facilities aren't always the answer. The institution that was once seen as Eala's greatest advantage was now being framed as her biggest obstacle. But the criticism didn't stop at coaching philosophy. Supporters began questioning whether the facility had adequately prepared Eala for the mental side of professional tennis. The WTA circuit is a psychological war zone. Competitors face constant travel, media scrutiny, and the burden of performing under the weight of national expectations. Eala wasn't just representing herself on the court. She was representing the entire Philippines, a country. The setback to Victoria Tomova wasn't an isolated incident. That's what supporters began to realize as they dug deeper into Eala's recent results. It was part of a pattern, a troubling trend that indicated something more fundamental was broken. After her breakthrough at the Miami Open earlier in 2024, where she earned her first main draw WTA victory, expectations soared. Supporters believed she was on the verge of a breakthrough, preparing to climb the rankings and establish herself as a consistent threat on the circuit. But instead of building momentum, Eala hit a wall. She suffered early exits in tournament after tournament, losing to lower-ranked opponents she was expected to overcome. The defeats were painful to witness, not because of the scorelines, but because of how they transpired. All would commence encounter strong, showcasing the aggressive baseline game and fast reflexes that made her a junior champion. Then somewhere in the second set, something would alter. Her energy would decline. Her projectile selection would become erratic. Her body language would scream frustration. And by the third set, she looked defeated before the final point was even scored. Tennis analysts began labeling it a mental block. Supporters labeled it a lack of killer instinct. Either way, the consequence was the same. Eala was losing encounters she should have won. Then came the SEA Game controversy, an incident that reignited old emotions and added fuel to the outcry. During an essential doubles encounter representing the Philippines, Eala and her companion faced Vietnam in a tense conflict for the gold medal. The contest was close, filled with momentum fluctuations and controversial line conversations. At one juncture, a projectile that appeared to land out was called in, handing the Vietnamese team a critical point. Eala and her companion protested, but the call stood. The Philippines subsequently lost the encounter, and Filipino supporters were livid. Social platforms blossomed with accusations of biased officiating. Some claimed the SEA Game had a history of favoring host nations and regional politics over fairness. Others noted to the dearth of Hawkeye technology, arguing that outmoded officiating methods left too much space for human error and corruption. Eala herself remained composed in her post-match interview, but her remarks carried a weight that supporters couldn't ignore. She said, "I just wanted fairness. That's all we ever ask for." Those words became a rallying chant. Filipino supporters shared the clip thousands of times, converting it into a symbol of the struggles all faced, not just on the court, but within the broader tennis ecosystem. They saw her as a victim of a rigged system, an athlete battling against forces beyond her control. But here's where the narrative begins convoluted. Was Eala really a victim? Or was she simply struggling to fulfill unrealistic expectations? The truth is, tennis is a lonely sport. There's no team to transport you when you're struggling. No coach can walk onto the court and fix your errors mid-encounter. You're alone out there struggling against your opponent, the elements, the throng, and most recklessly yourself. And for Eala, the weight of representing an entire country was devastating. Rafael Nadal rarely involves himself in controversies. The 22-time Grand Slam champion has established a reputation as one of the most modest, respectful figures in tennis. He allows his racket do the talking. But when the outcry against Eala and his institution attained a boiling point, Nadal broke his reticence. In a press conference prior of a charity exhibition encounter, a journalist inquired Nadal about the criticism encircling the facility and ISA's recent struggles. The room went silent. Everyone expected a diplomatic non-answer, the kind of safe response athletes exhibit when they don't want to make headlines. Instead, Nadal leaned into the microphone and delivered a truth bomb that sent astonishment waves through the tennis world. "People don't realize how hard the sport is," Nadal began, his voice serene but firm. "They see an athlete lose one encounter and they want to burn everything down. They want to blame the facility, blame the instructor, blame the competitor. But nobody wishes to talk about the real problem, the burden we place on these kids." He paused, letting the words settle in. Then he proceeded, "Alex is 20 years old. 20. When I was 20, I was still figuring out who I was as a competitor. I lost encounters I should have won. I made errors. I struggled mentally, but I had time to grow because folks didn't expect me to be perfect straight away. Alex doesn't have that privilege. Every time she steps on the court, spectators expect her to triumph. And when she doesn't, they destroy her." The room erupted with follow-up queries, but Nadal wasn't finished. "Tennis is not just about technique. It's not just about preparation. It's about mental fortitude, and that takes years to construct. You can't teach someone how to handle the burden of representing an entire country. You can't educate someone how to filter out the noise when millions of people are watching. That's something they have to acquire on their own through experience, through failure." Then came the line that got viral. "If we keep treating new competitors like machines, we're going to annihilate them before they even have an opportunity to reach their potential." Nadal's remarks hit like a sledgehammer. Suddenly, the conversation altered. Supporters who had been demanding answers from the institution were compelled to confront an uncomfortable truth. They were part of the issue. The toxic cycle of hype and criticism, the unrealistic expectations, the social media pylons after every setback, all of it contributed to the mental burden that teenage competitors like Isa carried. Tennis commentators caught up on Nadal's statement, using it as a launching point for broader discussions about competitor development and mental welfare. Some praised Nadal for speaking out, labeling him a rare voice of reason in a sport enamored with instant results. Others contended that while his remarks were well-intentioned, they didn't absolve the institution's responsibility to prepare adversaries for the mental aspect of professional tennis. But the most important issue remained unresolved. Would Nadal's intervention alter anything, or would the cycle continue? For Alex Isa, Nadal's statement was melancholy. On one hand, it validated her strife. Rafael Nadal's statement should have brought clarity. It should have informed supporters to be patient to grant Alex Isa the time and space she needed to develop. Instead, it divided the tennis globe even further. Filipino supporters split into two camps. One party agreed with Nadal, arguing that Aya deserved patience and support. They pointed to her age, her accomplishments at the junior level, and the immense responsibility she faced as the country's only high-profile tennis sensation. They flooded social platforms with messages of encouragement, posting highlights of her best encounters and reminding detractors that she was still learning. The other side wasn't having it. They argued that Nadal was making excuses, safeguarding his institution's reputation at Aya's expense. They asserted that if the facility genuinely cared about her development, they would have addressed her vulnerabilities years ago instead of letting them persist. Some supporters pointed to other competitors who had overcome comparable burden and succeeded, inquiring why Aya couldn't do the same. The debate erupted on Twitter, Facebook, and tennis forums for weeks. Comment sections became battle zones with supporters trading obscenities and accusations. Some alleged that Alice critics were just toxic haters seeking for someone to tear down. Others contended that criticism was necessary, that naive support would only facilitate mediocrity. Then things took a darker turn. Fake news began circulating across social platforms. Unverified reports alleged that Aya had inked a $1 billion contract with a prominent brand, fueling accusations that she was more fixated on endorsements than developing her game. The rumors were wholly false, but they spread like wildfire. Supporters who were already irritated with her performance seized on to the narrative, using it as evidence that she had lost her hunger and determination. Eala's team was required to issue a public statement denying the claims, but the damage was done. The narrative had shifted from struggling young competitor merit support to overhyped athletes settling in on potential she hasn't acquired. The emotional toll on Aya became impossible to disregard. In a rare social media post, she addressed the backlash explicitly. Her message was brief, but the pain behind it was clear. "I realize I haven't been competing at my best. I know I've let folks down, but I'm still fighting. I'm still working. And I pray that one day you'll see that I never cease trying." The post went viral, tallying up thousands of comments within hours. Some supporters flocked around her, expressing affection and support. Others doubled down, accusing her of playing the victim instead of seizing accountability. The controversy had escalated beyond tennis. It became a reflection of how we treat youthful athletes in the era of social platforms. Every mistake magnified, every challenge dissected, every setback transformed into a referendum on their entire profession. And through it all, Eala was still just a 20-year-old girl trying to understand how to survive in one of the deadliest sports in the world. So, what's the true narrative? What nobody's been willing to speak out loud until now? Here's the truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. Eala isn't failing. The system is. Tennis has become preoccupied with immediate achievement. Supporters want their young stars to command immediately, to ascend the rankings without stumbling, to manage burden like seasoned veterans even when they're scarcely out of their teens. But that's not how development works. That's not how professions are formed. The Rafael Nadal Academy didn't fail Eala. It gave her world-class preparation, access to top-tier facilities, and a foundation that most competitors would murder for. But no institution, no matter how prestigious, can shelter an athlete from the mental and emotional challenges of professional tennis. The facility can teach technique, fitness, and strategy. It can't teach a 20-year-old how to block out the din when an entire nation is monitoring her every move. The genuine issue isn't Eala's serve, her backhand, or her mental fortitude. It's the absurd standard we've created for adolescent athletes. We celebrate their victories as evidence of greatness, then turn on them the instant they struggle. We demand perfection while ignoring that they're human creatures navigating the most difficult era of their professions. And here's what makes it even worse. The backlash against Eala isn't distinct. It's part of a larger pattern in tennis. Naomi Osaka withdrew from tournaments to safeguard her mental health and faced criticism for being weak. Coco Gauff wept after early defeats and was accused of being too emotive. Emma Raducanu won the US Open as an adolescent and has been labeled a disappointment ever since. We construct them up, then tear them down. We revel their potential, then penalize them for not fulfilling it quickly enough. And we wonder why so many young competitors fade out before they even achieve their prime. Eala is still developing. She's still learning how to manage burden, how to close out tense encounters, how to bounce back from devastating setbacks. That process takes time. It takes patience, and it requires a fan base willing to support her through the difficulties, not just the victories. Rafael Nadal was correct when he said, "We're destroying youthful competitors by treating them like tools." But the question is, are we willing to change? Are we willing to give competitors like Eala the space they need to grow, even if it means enduring more defeats, more setbacks, more frustration? Or will we continue to demand immediate greatness, then appear surprised when young athletes collapse under the weight of our expectations? The ugly reality Nadal exposed wasn't about tennis. It was about us, about how we regard the athletes we profess to love, about how swiftly we turn admiration into condemnation, about how social platforms have granted us the power to destroy professions with a single viral thread. Eala's narrative isn't over. She's still fighting, still preparing, still believing that she can attain the top. But whether she succeeds or not will depend on more than just her aptitude and work ethic. It will hinge on whether we as supporters are willing to let her falter without destroying her in the process. Here's the issue that should torment every supporter who criticized her. Eala's voyage is far from completed. The backlash she confronted, the brutal criticism, the impossible expectations, none of it defines her profession. What defines her is what she does next. How she responds to this adversity. Whether she allows the noise shatter her or uses it as fuel to prove everyone incorrect. Rafael Nadal exposed tennis's unpleasant truth. We've created a system that devours youth competitors alive. But Eala has something most individuals don't. The courage to keep fighting even when the world is observing her stumble. That's the mark of a true champion. The real issue is, will we eventually learn to support our athletes through the struggle? Or will we keep tearing them down the instant they fall? If this narrative made you think differently about Eala or the burden young athletes endure, hit that subscribe icon. We're diving deep into the untold stories, the controversies, and the emotions that make tennis more than just a sport. Don't miss the next one.